Well, I'm joined now by Anthony Weiner. Anthony, good to see you.
You as well. Nice to have you back in town.
Well, it's been a long time. I actually worked out the last time I interviewed you was 2011.
Right.
Before a lot of stuff happened in your life. At the time, you were doing well in the polling to be the mayor of New York City. You were a very dynamic, pretty successful congressman, popular. And I interviewed you in a debate with Donald Trump, where the two of you went at each other. And it culminated with you saying to him that you had more chance of becoming president than he did.
Yeah, that's right. It was a while ago. That was bad. I think you at once upon a time had a successful show on CNN. So look how much can change.
Gazing. Interesting, though, how things have played out since then for Donald Trump, who obviously has now been president. Do you think he can be president again?
Well, it doesn't seem that way. I mean, we just had this race, this exact same race. And so one determining factor in a race is how it's gone in the past. Biden beat him pretty easily just 3 years ago. So I don't really think that you should expect that much. It's hard to see how Donald Trump improved his chances of being under indictment by the American people in 91 instances. It doesn't seem that way. And it doesn't seem, frankly, that even his own party is that enthusiastic about him returning. So I think at the end of the day...
Most Democrats don't want Biden to run again. They think he's too old.
Most Republicans don't want Trump to run again. So that's one thing they have in common. They're both old. They're both unpopular within their parties. They're going to be the nominees. And I see just like, look, if you look at it, every time that Donald Trump has run, 2016 lost the popular vote. 2018, his party got shellacked. 2020, he lost by 7 million votes. 2022 in the midterms, where Republicans should have done amazingly, they got squashed. So the party of Donald Trump is not a successful party, and I see no reason it'll change this year.
Let's talk about you. I saw an interview you did.
That's it? We're done talking about the election?
No, I'm going to come back to the election. Okay. I'm interested in your story.
I'm not running.
I think that'll be a relief to a lot of people, not your supporters, of which I'm sure you have a lot of support still. But let me ask you about, I guess, scandal. I saw you say in an interview recently where you said, very hard to move on from a sex scandal if your name's Weiner, which made me laugh, right? But it's true, right? Your headline created itself, really, with your name throughout that process. What has it been like for you, just getting your life back on track?
Well, look, I'm healthier. I'm in recovery. I served time in prison. I'm on the radio now, so I'm not in public life, but I'm having my say. It's kind of. I'm actually surprised you're not doing more introduction to the subject to your listeners and viewers, because it's been a while now. So it's kind of receded a good deal.
Well, when people ask you, well, let you do it. When people ask you what you did, what do you say?
I said I had a scandal. I had a scandal where I was texting and sexting dozens and dozens of people and got me in trouble, cost me my career, cost me my wife, cost me my family, cost me a lot of things, cost me my liberty. But I also say I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now, that I believe that these things happen. I think some people need to hit a lower bottom than other people. But I say that I don't have a lot of regrets in that. I kind of believe that I'm where I'm supposed to be right now.
What was the lowest moment?
So the lowest moment was, look, I mean, the lowest moment was when, it's hard to say, it's a good question, I haven't asked that. I guess the lowest moment was when, my son, someone sold a picture to the newspapers of me with my son, which was obviously very difficult for me to see. But
because you were in bed with him and you were also sexting somebody.
Well, I wasn't sexting anyone. It was, without going into the details, which aren't really that important. What's important is that someone sold a picture with him in it. And, at the time I was spending, frankly, a lot of time as I always did with my son, he was in the picture. But the harm that I did so many people, it was frankly long before I went to prison. I had hit my bottom and I entered recovery. And there are a lot of people who I disappointed, but a lot of people that I still feel that I can serve in other ways.
What was prison life for you?
Wasn't easy. I wouldn't recommend it.
People say date night one is the worst because you suddenly hear the clanking door and you realize that's your life for the next.
Look, it's a community like any other. So it has its challenges, and so some ways being someone in politics that I was able to navigate those things. I'm someone who maybe because of issues that I have had with my inner emotional state that I was able to endure it easier than others, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think it was lucky for you, you dodged it.
Did you have a good reception from people in there or not?
So people, look, I managed it. The answer is that I was a bit of a novelty until you're not. I mean, there are lots of people in prison who everyone has a story. And it's like politics. It's like being in any community. You have people that are difficult to deal with, and you have people that show you a lot of empathy, and you have people that these are people in there for a very long time. I got a great deal of appreciation for the idea that we as a society, throw people in prison for long periods of time when probably half the amount of time would probably serve in sending the message. And a lot of people are in there for things like marijuana, which are barely even illegal nowadays. So I learned a lot about the system. I think that I at once had it harder and easier than others. And harder in that they wanted to make it very clear that they were not cutting me any slack. But I also think they made sure that I didn't come home in a box.
I mean, a lot of people say they get no rehabilitation whatsoever from being incarcerated. I would imagine in your case, maybe not rehabilitation, but reevaluation of where you got to in life and what you had to do when you came out. Would that be fair?
Well, here, I found ways inside prison to be of service to the other men there. I found ways to take lessons and to learn lessons and to try to help people who are struggling with things. There wasn't anything good about it. I was away from my son for 15 months and 8 days. No, there wasn't anything good about it, and I was already well on my way to being a healthier and better person long before I went to prison. I don't think I should have gone to prison. I take full responsibility for what got me there, though, and so yeah, I mean, it certainly isn't something I would say I benefited from. I survived it.
When you've looked back at it all, can you work out what drove you to do that to yourself? I mean, you basically blew up your own career and life.
Yeah.
When you had so much going for you. You were married to a very beautiful, successful person who was working for Hillary Clinton. You had a young son who you loved. Career-wise, you were a high-flying politician. Who knows how far you could have gone? And yet you blew it all up. Have you been able to work out what did that?
But all of those things, maybe people not as prominent as I, all of those things are things that people can say about the way addiction, the way mental issues affect their lives. There are a lot of people who live great lives, but who, because of inner demons, because of challenges with addiction, it all gets blown up. So there's nothing unique about me except that I did it in a very, very public way. It isn't immediately clear, what was the moment zero that started it all. But it seems pretty clear to me from everything I understand that the way I was processing things, more and more input that I would get, more and more accolades, more and more criticism, more and more feedback that I would get, the more that I craved. And once technology created a way that I can be getting it nonstop, and I could be interacting with people nonstop in ways appropriate, inappropriate, and everything in between, it became something that was consuming to me, and it became a compulsive activity. I understand that now, and understanding it's part of it, treating it, having a rigorous program that kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow. But like so many people that deal with mental issues, they're not that far in the background at any moment.
New York is a city full of straight talkers, particularly in the street. I've had it good, bad, and ugly over the years. When you walk around, how are New Yorkers with you?
Well, New Yorkers, and I think this is true of everyone, people are generally nice to you in person. I mean, people are generally very empathetic, but for me, I'm a little bit of a Rorschach test for people. People sometimes come up to me and embrace me on the street and say, I know what you've been through. Sometimes people will come up to me and say, I have someone in my life that did something like this. Sometimes people would say up to, do you mind if take your number and call you because I'm dealing with something similar? Sometimes people still stop me in the street and say, the price of steak is too high. I can't believe you think Joe Biden is doing a good job. I get all kinds of things, but overall, it is all within, not all of it, most of it's within the two goalposts of reasonable ways that people deal with one another. And I still enjoy it. I can never imagine living anywhere else.
Your wife, Abedin, said of the scandals, he didn't just break my heart, he ripped it out and stomped on it over and over again. That must have been hard to hear.
Very hard. She actually said that in an amazing book called also I should know it, but if and or something like that. It's a great book. Look, this is, again, the experience, when I go into rooms of my 12-step program and I listen to people talk about what they've put their families through and how long it took them to get in the right. But she didn't deserve this. She didn't bring this on herself, nor did my son, nor did my constituents, nor did people like you in the media who I lied to, like just out and out lied to because I was in such shame. But I accept that. And of all of the people on the list of amends that I need to make, hers is one that I'm going to have to live the rest of my life.
Have you been able to rebuild a good relationship with Huma? Obviously, you share a child, but
very much so. We share a child. We see each other just about every day. She's one of my biggest supporters. Hopefully, I'm one of her biggest supporters. Look, in a way, what we experienced was sui generis. There aren't people who can say, well, what do you do if you're married to a guy named Weiner who's in a sex scandal and winds up going to prison when your kid is 8 years old? And I also have an sense of what she went through, being a person who is connected with Hillary Clinton, who now she's on television herself, and to see her connected with some outrageous, Islamophobia, outrageous story from QAnon and all these other things. So in a way, we're closer than we've ever been.
How did you explain it all to your son? He's now at an age where he can read it all if he wants to on the internet.
Yeah, well, so ever since he's been a young boy, I have tried to have conversations with him in an age-appropriate way. There are some adults in my life who don't understand when I talk to them about this stuff. And so for him, it is trying to stay ahead of what he may find out, but having this notion of honesty that his mom and I both say to him, we can be a place that you can come to for the truth about it. And there's a lot of crap that's out there that's not true. In addition to the stuff that is true, is a lot that's not true. And so I just try to talk up to him. I try to talk to him like he's older than he is, and just to be there for him when he does decide to ask these questions. Hopefully, I can do it in a way that he can value the honesty that I show, that I didn't show the world when I was in the depth of my troubles. And also to kind of show him what coming out the other side of something looks like.
What does it look like?
There is a...
Does it still haunt you, the whole thing? Or?
It doesn't, because I have come to believe that these things happen for a reason. That where I am right now, there's a great deal that we do in life where we would feel so much better if we just had a notion of acceptance. A lot of Buddhists believe that the source of all discontent is wanting things to be different. There's an expression in my program, abandon all hope of a better past. Like, this is where I am. I'm sitting here with you. I'm seeing someone I haven't seen in over 10 years, okay? You're doing great. I think I'm doing okay. I don't have this sense. I don't sit at home watching C-SPAN 3 throwing shoes at my TV. That's not where I am. And when someone invites me and says, I want to talk about it, more often than not, I say yes, because maybe somewhere out there in your audience is someone who's going through crazy stuff that he doesn't understand. He thinks he's all alone. There's a community of people that deal with these challenges.
What's the best advice you got, and who was it from, about how to deal with it all?
Well, there are a lot of people. It's fascinating to me that a lot of the people that were in my life as my quote-unquote supporters at the time were not the ones that turned out that today are the ones that I'm in touch with. There are some people that are, but there are a lot of people who are in the camp that I said, listen, I consider myself his friend. The way I express my friendship is being there for someone when they're in a tough time. Politicians generally don't think that way.
They chuck you under a bus.
Right, nor do media people, to be honest. And the reason is, could be varied, but the people that have given me the best advice are not the people that said, all right, you should do this interview or don't do that interview. It's people that reach out to me and says, listen, I'm in a program that sounds like you could use. Come on down. You'll be among people that care about you. Did you ever hear from Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton himself went through tremendous sex scandals, humiliating his wife. Did you ever hear from them? Yeah, so remember, there are different arcs. After I left Congress in 2011, shortly after you and I did our last interview, it was a sexting scandal that was a sexting scandal. It seemed kind of weird at the time. I was the first Twitter sexting scandal.
Right.
And then when I tried to make a comeback in 2013, I had not fully put down those activities. I never treated it the way I should have treated it, as a real mental health. I treated it as something that wasn't that important to really deal with. And so then it became a situation where it got harder for people who gave me that second chance to say, I'm going to give you a third chance. But I don't that's not on them. That's on me. I was the one that betrayed these relationships. I was the one that did these things, and I have to clean up. That's why an important part of continuing with life is to make amends to all of those people that I put in a very difficult position.
You've been a very skillful politician in that answer.
I'm probably the best natural politician you've ever interviewed, yes.
Well, actually, you were one of the, well, you were certainly one of the most bombastic, on the front foot, uncompromising and smart politicians I've interviewed. No question.
It's nice of you to say.
No question.
Nice to be
That's why what followed was, for you, a great tragedy. Right, there's no question. But you didn't answer about the Clintons. Is there a reason you don't want to say either way?
No, it's because it's hard to market. When my first scandal happened and this first thing became, and then people did kind of, to some degree, rally around me. It seemed kind of a weird thing. I mean, I had sent pictures I sent a picture on someone on Twitter who I meant it not to be, and it wasn't my fiance at the time or my wife at the time. It was a weird thing, but I wanted to get out from under. I saw your interview with George Santos. I was not interested in, I knew that I was going to be a distraction, problematic, so I resigned. Later on, when these things reemerged and people had given me a secondary, then there was much less of an effort to reach out. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to further bring anyone else into it. So the Clintons have been very supportive to me up until the point that I probably didn't deserve their support.
Of course, it had catastrophic impact on you personally, but it had a pretty catastrophic professional impact, not just for you, but for a lot of other people, because as part of the criminal investigation into the final sexting scandal with what turned out to be a girl of 15. As part of that, they seized your laptop, and on the laptop they found the infamous emails which led to James Comey at the FBI opening up again the case into Hillary Clinton, which many people, including her, believe tipped the election Donald Trump's way. So the consequences of your behavior had a quite spectacular impact on America and on that presidential race. Do you think, looking at it dispassionately now years later, do you think that without that investigation into you, your laptop, and the discovery of those emails and the reopening of that investigation, Hillary would have been president?
Look, it's very easy to do the butterfly's wings flapped and all these different things happened. Now that we know that the Russians were putting their finger and their money very heavily down on the scale, and that it was likely the Russians that hacked into Podesta's emails and turned them over to WikiLeaks and these things like that. To say that any one particular thing led to it. Now, there's no doubt that James Comey probably contributed to as close as it was to Donald Trump being president. Now, can you say if it was not me that James Comey did something corrupt with my laptop? Would it not have been something else? Could it have been something else that the Russians did?
But it was your laptop, ultimately.
It was my laptop, but you say, did I think it was conclusive in the race? It could be. As a race as close as it was, you can point to the amount of times that Hillary didn't go to Wisconsin because she didn't think that it was.
I understand that. Yeah.
You can point to the other ways that the Russians.
I just wonder whether you feel any sense of guilt.
The answer is I do, but I also don't believe knowing this business. I'm not sure I buy the point A to point B analysis. But if people want to hold that view, I certainly respect it. You know, generally speaking, things don't change that much close to the election, but I can tell you that the trauma that it's caused me and my wife because of that perception, I get it. I'm not going to dispute it. When something is as close as it is, something like 60,000 votes in 3 states are the difference. If you want to point to something that changed the dynamic, I'm willing to cop to that.
Did you apologize to Hillary personally?
I did not apologize. I don't recall if I apologized personally, but I might have dropped her a note as part of my amends process, saying I'm sorry for any harm that.
I mean, you'd remember, surely.
No, I did letters and the like as part of my 8th step, as part of my making amends.
You'd remember if you'd written to Hillary saying I'm sorry about what happened.
No, if you're asking me, am I sorry about what happened? Certainly I did. But
no, but I'm asking, did you actually write that letter, do you think?
Yes, but I thought you were asking about the laptop. Are you asking generally? I certainly did generally any impact I had on her. I felt with terrible distraction that it was.
You actually wrote her a letter saying that?
I did.
Did she reply?
That's between us.
I mean, it's extraordinary as we sit here talking about the next election. and
Actually, we're not talking about the next election. We're talking about 2 elections.
Well, no. We began by talking about the next one, and it's obviously started this week. It's just fascinating to me to be with somebody who's been through the ringer, no question, but also may have played a part in history, albeit that wasn't why you were doing what you were doing, and you never thought through that could be a consequence. But, you are a part of American presidential history in that sense. That's a heavy toll to bear. Well, never mind everything else.
If you want to construct it that way.
Well, I wonder if you do. Really.
I don't. I mean, you've given this more thought perhaps than I have. I mean, I view it. Look, a thing happened. Someone with responsibility not to do corrupt things did a corrupt thing and helped swing the election to Donald Trump. I'm not contesting that. If it were not me, would it have been something else? Were there not another list of things that it could be? All I can say is I, generally speaking, am not someone who's going back and navel-gazing about that. As it turned out, Hillary Clinton beat him by 6 million votes, 5.5 million votes. As it turned out, there were tactical decisions that were made. As it turned out, there were 2 of the most unpopular candidates in American history. Did Anthony Weiner's laptop make one of them more popular or less popular? I'm not sure I'm buying it. I'm much more persuasive is what Donald Trump's intelligence agency said, which is it was part of Russia's systematic effort to steal the election for him. So was I part of that? Could be. So was John Podesta. I mean, John Podesta's emails arguably had a much greiter impact on that campaign than I did.
Did you ever hear from Donald Trump about any of this? About anything?
No.
You've had no contact with him?
No. I mean, he's been boffo for my ratings on the radio, but no, he hasn't reached out.
What do you make of the Trump phenomenon, which it clearly is? I mean, he not only won as the least qualified candidate in history against the most qualified, which was spectacular enough, but it now looks like he's got a very good chance of being Republican nominee, albeit you don't think he'll beat Biden. But the Trump phenomenon is an extraordinary thing, politically.
Well, Trump is an extraordinary thing, and the effect that he's had on disemboweling the Republican Party has been fascinating to watch. I mean, just about everything that I knew about the Republican Party growing up is now not true. They're now the party of Putin. They're now the party that basically refuses to. There's no business wing of that party that talks about immigration in a responsible way and things like that. For those of us who are New Yorkers, like we've known Donald Trump a very long time.
Right.
And we know he's a jackass, and we know he's not good at business, and we know he doesn't have as much money as he said, and we know that he's generally a buffoon. Now, the fact that he has successfully, thanks to his TV stuff, been marketed as something to the American people that about 1/3 of them, which is really all it is, about 1/3 of them think that he's a good president, should continue to do that, and was good.
That's 100 million people. 1/3 of America.
Well, not 1/3. That's not. No, he basically.
What did he get in the last election? 75 million.
About 72, I think. But that.
He got 10 million more voted for him after 4 years of Trump presidency than the first time.
He also lost so he also lost by a much bigger margin. Sure, and the guy's never carried the popular
vote. My point being, though,
it's
not a small number of people.
It is. It's a relatively small percentage. All I said is about 1/3 of the country. I mean, he's not very popular. And we do have a system in this country that many of your viewers would find bizarre, that we have an inherent, the Electoral College system inherently benefits the minority party in this case, which is the Republicans. So, and he was a lousy president, was tossed out in his ass. So in a way, that is par for the course here in New York. Like, we know him as that guy. And now we've had trials that have shown that he clearly knew that he was full of it at the time, and that he was so struggling in 2014 and 15 that if he didn't get lower interest rate loans, then he would be out of it. And now he's struggling here. The reason he's spending so much time in New York is he knows if he's got one remaining building that's worth anything, and he may lose that. So we are kind of amused by the whole thing. As a Democrat, he's been a boon to our country in is that he's completely crushed the Republican Party. They can't win anything since he's been in office, including his own races. And now you've got an animated country to make sure he doesn't become, and he could wind up in prison. So that's about par for the way we thought of.
How would he fare if he winds up in prison? You've been there.
I can't even imagine what it's like.
Could he handle it, do you think?
It's not. Look, I'm sure if they made sure that Anthony Weiner came home in one piece, I'm sure they'll make sure that he comes home in one piece.
Would it be good for America if he is convicted of any one of the 91 charges? Would it be good for America to see any president go to prison? Or
No,
would it be better for him
probably
to be
not.
pardoned?
I generally think, well, I don't know about pardon.
In that eventuality?
No, I don't know about if pardoning is necessary. I do believe that this has been an important civic moment for the United States of America to test this theory that no one is above the law. I happen to think that this is a kind of a good moment for our system if it holds. It's held up to now. Whether he actually wears a prison jumpsuit and goes into the hole while he's being tested for TB and all these other things, I don't even think that that's the most important thing, to be honest with you. But the notion that he stands accountable is a very American ideal, and I think we should see it through. But as far as him being in prison, it's not the most important thing.
Joe Biden, when asked about you, said, "Oh God, Anthony Weiner. I shouldn't comment on Anthony Weiner. I'm not a big fan. I wasn't before he got into trouble, so I shouldn't comment on Anthony Weiner."
Yeah, I actually use that in the bumper for my radio show. You haven't even mentioned it. It's called The Middle on WABC
Give
Radio.
it a sell.
The Middle, you can get it as a podcast all around the world. I have that bumper and one from Donald Trump saying something on the stump about me. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden when I was in Congress. I think he's done a pretty good job as president, but I'm not sure if he and I saw each other, we'd give each other a big hug.
Do you feel that what he's been through with his son Hunter is kind of ironic, given his dislike of you?
I don't see the connection.
Just that maybe he's realised that life can be difficult.
No. That was a comment. When he was vice president, I was at once very helpful to his administration with Obama on Obamacare and other things, but very critical for the way that they very often were not very good politicians. And so I had a tete-a-tete with him when he came before the Democratic caucus, where I called him out for being not idiots politically, and he hasn't liked me ever since. But I don't know if the Hunter Biden has any connection to it.
If Donald Trump can make a comeback and potentially even win the White House again, why can't you? I mean, many would say a lot of the stuff he's got up to over the years makes you look like a choir boy.
I don't know. There's plenty of good people. There's some of it's generational. I mean, I started
How old are you
out,
now?
I'm 59.
59. I mean, by political standards, by Joe Biden.
No, I don't think I'm not over the hill. But in terms of there are.
But are you over politics?
Here's what.
You're such a political animal. You always were.
I do on the most conservative radio station in New York. I'm the one liberal guy. I'm the guy doing classical music on a hip hop station. And I get to scratch the itch that way. I get to go back and forth with callers. I get to go back and forth with guests. I get plenty of chances to kind of scratch the itch of being of service to my community. I'm now kind of an elder statesman. Politicians call me for advice and things like that. But do I really want to go and rehash all of these things again? Do I want to ask for a third chance? I am a good politician. I would have been an excellent mayor. I would have been better than de Blasio. I would have been better than Eric Adams. But all of that being said is that politics is like a lot of things in life. It's about being at the right place at the right time, being what the people are looking for at that particular moment, being a good candidate. And I think that I can reasonably have people say to me, listen, we gave you that chance a couple of times. You blew it. You had your chance. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing now.
Did any of the celebrities who sucked up to you when they thought you might be mayor or they thought Hillary might win and your wife would therefore be working at the White House, all those celebrities who would have been all over you like a rash, did any of them stand by you after it all went down?
Well, I dated Lady Gaga for a while. That didn't go very well. No, I'm just kidding. You know what I mean? I totally do. But let me just say this. I think there is this notion that politicians are all self-interested. They're not. There's some very good people, and there are some people like my former roommate in Congress. He and I stay in touch and the like. But asking people to be supportive of me is to some degree asking them to risk getting in trouble. Like, sometimes I'll have a politician friend of mine reach out to me and say, can you make a donation to my campaign? Or can you come in and meet with my staff and give them advice on field? And like, think about that a minute. Do you really want that headline, Anthony Weiner is helping our campaign? And so politicians are a very different type. Most of the people who rallied around me the hardest were the regular type of person who I'm like, I know that guy. I know him okay. That person said that person who treated me as like a test of his friendship or her friendship, those are the people that are in my life to this day for whom I'm very grateful. But I don't hold it against. I mean, I know you're trying to get to this, like, these politicians, do they sell you out? No, I did these things.
Actually, I meant celebrities in particular, famous people. who entertainers who like to hang around politicians I think are on particularly the liberal fast track.
There are some to which I've gotten closer because they're in recovery too.
So that's fascinating. Any you could name?
The whole idea of like a lot of the programs that I'm involved in are anonymous programs. But the answer is no. But there are people.
I have an idea of like you and Charlie Sheen hanging out having a beer.
There are a lot of people. A lot of people in your business too, to be honest, are in these rooms. I mean, these things that we're reflecting back on ourselves. We're being judged based on clicks and ratings and everything else. It does put people, and actors are like that too, who kind of like are putting themselves out there and everything else. And sometimes it turns out that's a reflection of needing something. They could talk about a God-shaped hole that you're like have something that's missing. So some of those people have, but I have absolutely no qualms at the way the world has responded to me. I am not in any way a victim here. I have victimized other people. And I need to make amends to those people. But I believe that part of why I'm here and part of this and part of the reason I said gladly yes to come on and chat with you is because I believe that part of the way I can be of service in the years to come is not necessarily voting on stuff in Washington or giving a heated speech, but maybe having someone see what I've been through and say, you know what, okay, that guy's named Weiner and he's having a sex scandal and he went to prison and lost his career. If he can come out the other side, then I can too.
Have you been tempted, finally, at any stage of all this to change your name?
No.
You can do it legally.
Is Piers Morgan your actual name? I wondered that.
Yes.
Is it really? It's a very TV name. No, I can't imagine it. And people say the same thing. Would you ever leave New York? Move to Iowa, for example. It's part of. Don't you believe that if you wanted to conceive of like how would I have my undoing, it would be in this way. How would I finally be laid low? Someone like me. It would have to be all of this. It would have to be named Weiner. It'd have to be a postmodern sex scandal with people I've never met, never made any effort to meet. The answer is no. I'm very. And by the way, the last original insult I heard about my name, I heard in the 5th grade. So it's like, I'm not going to hear anything new now.
Anthony Weiner, it's good to catch up.
You as well. Come back to New York anytime. I can't give you a key to the city, but I can make you welcome.
Good to see you.
You as well.
All the best.